Do you remember what jurisdiction means? It means the power or authority of the courts of law to interpret the laws and use these laws to resolve disputes. The Supreme Court of India, which is the apex court, has various types of jurisdiction. The Supreme Court has original, appellate, as well as advisory jurisdiction. In this video, we'll be talking about the functions of the Supreme Court. When we say that the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over disputes between the Union and the states, it means that the Supreme Court has the power to deal with cases when a dispute occurs between the Union and the states. But it doesn't tell us how these cases will be resolved. So in functions, we'll be understanding how the Supreme Court carries out its jurisdiction. So the Supreme Court is the highest court of India and it has various functions. It has the power to issue writs for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. The Supreme Court is also a court of record and it has the power to punish for contempt of court, that is contempt of itself. Also, the Supreme Court has the power of judicial review and it has the power to carry out cases of public interest litigation. Now imagine that you have just gone out to buy some groceries, but a police jeep comes up, picks you up and arrests you. They go to the police station and put you in the lockup. Now you have no idea why you have been arrested. So you call your parents and tell them about the situation. Your parents come to the police station and ask the police about why you have been arrested. But the police does not agree to give reasons or to speak to your parents. So your parents call a lawyer. This lawyer comes and asks the police the same question, the reason for detaining you. The police says that someone has filed a complaint against you, but they don't show you the FIR. In that case, what would you do? So first you try to approach the magistrate, but say 24 hours have passed and the police hasn't taken you to a magistrate yet and the magistrate hasn't responded. So in such a situation, you can understand that your fundamental right of life and liberty and your fundamental right to move freely is being curtailed. So when you know your fundamental rights are being curtailed, your parents can file a writ petition in the Supreme Court or in the high courts of the country. As we had already studied in the high courts, the Supreme Court also has the power to issue writs for enforcing the fundamental rights. When I give you a precious piece of jewelry, what is your first action? You must work towards protecting that piece of jewelry. The fundamental rights that the Constitution has given us are also very precious for our democracy. So for that reason, these fundamental rights also need to be protected and guaranteed. So the Supreme Court is called the guardian and the protector of the fundamental rights. That is, they can protect our fundamental rights by issuing writs. So, Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, which is the right to constitutional remedies, conferred the Supreme Court with the power to issue writs. So, writs are written instructions or commands that are given by the Supreme Court or the High Courts. A writ is a legal instrument which enforces obedience to the orders of a court. In India, we have 5 types of writs. We have the habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari and quo warranto. These writs are available for enforcement of the fundamental rights and can be issued by the Supreme Court as well as by the High Courts of India. To know more about what are writs and which writs are available with the Supreme Court to be issued in the enforcement of fundamental rights, you can click on the link to access the iDictionary feature. Now, when we are studying about the Supreme Court's writ jurisdiction, we know that the Supreme Court has the power to issue writs for the enforcement of fundamental rights. But when we had studied about the writ jurisdiction of the High Courts, it had said that the High Court has the power to issue writs for the enforcement of the fundamental rights or for any other purpose. So the Supreme Court can issue writs for the enforcement of only the rights that are fundamental rights. But the High Courts can issue writs for the enforcement of the fundamental rights as well as for the enforcement of certain other rights, such as for the enforcement of certain legal rights. So we understand that the writ jurisdiction of the High Courts is wider than the writ jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Now, if you remember, when we were studying about the High Courts, we had said that the High Courts are known as courts of record. Well, the Supreme Court is also a court of record. Why is that? It's because the judgments and decisions of the Supreme Court are also taken as evidence and preserved. So, the Supreme Court is a court of record because its judgments are recorded for evidence and testimony. The Supreme Court is the highest judicial authority in the country, and the decisions and judgments that are passed by the Supreme Court are arrived at by a lot of discussion and analysis of the laws. So this decision and judgments are very precious and they must be stored for evidence and testimony. When a similar case comes to any other court of the country, then the Supreme Court's decision can be used as a precedent. Such a judgment would be binding on all the courts of the country because the Supreme Court is the highest court in the country. Only if the Supreme Court takes this case for review and changes its decision can there be a reason why it would not be a final decision. So that is why the Supreme Court is known as the court of record. Other than this, the Supreme Court also has the power to punish for contempt of itself or the contempt of court. So what is contempt of court? It means if someone disobeys the court or criticizes the court in such a way which is derogatory and lowers the authority of the court and takes away the dignity of the court. The Supreme Court can punish someone for the contempt of court because otherwise it would not guarantee the independence of the judiciary and it would also lower the trust or the faith that the people have in the highest judicial office in the country. So the Supreme Court has the power to punish for contempt of itself. Now, the Supreme Court, just like the High Courts, also have the power of judicial review. Do you remember what judicial review is? It is the process through which the Supreme Court examines whether a law passed by the legislature or an action of the executive is in accordance with the Constitution or not. So, the Supreme Court is the guardian and final interpreter of the Constitution, and it has to see whether all the laws and actions that are being used in the country are in accordance to the spirit of the Constitution and the democracy. So since the Supreme Court is the guardian and final interpreter of the Constitution, the decisions of the Supreme Court are binding on all parties and all courts that are there in the country. Now, the Supreme Court doesn't take up every law that has been passed by the legislature or all of the actions that are taken by the executive. So, when does the Supreme Court take up a case of judicial review? The court exercises judicial review when there is a violation of the fundamental rights and in a dispute between who? The union government and the states, or between the states, or when a national or state law or executive action goes against the provisions of the Constitution. Now, if they do go against the provisions of the Constitution or against the spirit of democracy, what can the Supreme Court do? Well, then the Supreme Court has the power to strike out such a law or action of the executive and declare it as null or void. So therefore, the Supreme Court is known as the guardian and the final interpreter of the Constitution. It has the last word to say in any case which involves an interpretation of the Constitution of India. Now let us see an instance where the Supreme Court used its power of judicial review. So do you remember that we had talked about the collegium system? The collegium system is the system that is used in India for the appointment of judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. In the collegium system, the president who appoints these judges is advised or recommended by the Chief Justice of India, who takes the consultation of his 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court. So in this system, the president alone does not have the power to appoint the judges. Now, in 2015, the NJAC Act or the National Judicial Appointment Commission Act came into force. This act proposed the creation of a new body that would help in the appointment, recruitment and transfer of the judges. So instead of having a collegium of judges, this NJAC Act proposed that it would be headed by the Chief Justice of India and would consist of 2 senior most judges, 2 eminent personalities, out of which 1 should be from the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe or other backward classes, or should be a woman, and it would also have the law minister. Now this bill, the NJAC bill, was passed by both the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha and signed by the President. It came into force on 13th April 2015. However, the NJAC Act was not ensuring the judicial independence because the law minister was also there in the commission. So the law minister, who is a part of the executive or the government, was also getting to appoint the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. So in this case, an appeal was filed in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided that this was going against the judicial independence that was guaranteed by the Constitution. So it striked out the NJAC Act on 16th October 2015 and the old collegium system came back into existence. So in this way we see that the Supreme Court used its power of judicial review to strike out a law that was passed by the legislature, which was going against the spirit of the democracy and the provisions of the Constitution. This is why the Supreme Court is also known as the watchdog of the democracy. Now in the High Courts we had studied about the public interest litigation. The Supreme Courts also have the power of public interest litigation. This is because of judicial activism. So the Supreme Court wants to be aware and active in ensuring justice for everybody in the country. In public interest litigation, a person or an organization or entity can file a case in the Supreme Court or the High Courts saying that it affects the interest of the larger public. This person or entity might not be directly affected by this case, but he is a public spirited individual, which means that he is concerned about the safety and interest of the other citizens of the country. So, public interest litigation is the use of law to protect the interests of the people or to raise issues of public concern. And any person or organization can move the court on behalf of the general public. The Supreme Court, if it feels that the public interest litigation is the one that it should be taking up, then the Supreme Court can take up that case and jurisdicate on it. Now let us look at a case to understand how a PIL or a public interest litigation case works. So as part of a governmental campaign against child marriage, Bhanwari Devi tried to stop the marriage of a 1-year-old girl in her village in Rajasthan. The local people retaliated and harassed Bhanwari Devi and her family. They also imposed socio-economic boycott on her family. But on 22nd September 1992, Bhanwari Devi was raped by 5 men. She faced a lot of obstacles while she was trying to get justice for herself. Frustrated by the criminal justice system's inability to provide remedies and restore the dignity of the victim, Naina Kapoor, a lawyer who had attended Bhanwari Devi's criminal trial, filed a PIL case appeal in the Supreme Court of India, challenging the sexual harassment at workplace. In the Vishakha judgment, the Supreme Court recognized sexual harassment as a clear violation of the fundamental constitutional rights of equality, non-discrimination, life and liberty, and the fundamental right to carry out any occupation. As a result of the Vishakha judgment, an act was passed in 2013, which is known as the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act. So in this we see that a PIL was filed against sexual harassment at workplace, which is a concern that affects a lot of women throughout the country. And the Supreme Court took up this case and administered justice. So in this video, we've talked about the different functions of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest judicial authority in India and has a variety of functions. It has the power to issue writs for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. It is also known as a court of record because it stores its judgments for evidence and testimony that can be used in cases which come later to any of the courts in the country. It also has the power to punish for the contempt of itself. This would ensure judicial independence. It has the power of judicial review. The Supreme Court is the final interpreter of the Constitution, and if any law or action by the legislature or executive goes against the spirit of democracy, the Supreme Court can strike out such a law or action. Finally, the Supreme Court has the power of protecting the interests of the larger public through the public interest litigation. So, through performing all of these functions, the Supreme Court administers justice throughout the country. The Supreme Court is the only court that caters to the needs of all people of the nation. That is why the Supreme Court is called the guardian, final interpreter and the protector of the Constitution and the fundamental rights in India. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million+ questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.